Welcome to the speaker series on a shot glass of recovery.
Yeah. Yeah. You get a house, you get a car, then you start thinking that's all you are, but you don't know the truth. So let me spell it out for you. Now I got your attention, now there's a start. Now sit and listen to my favorite part. Life's been giving us some clues. The answer lies inside of your.
I am Lisa, the host of A Shot Glass of Recovery, and this is our speaker series. Let's sit back and get ready for some more experience, strength, and hope.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Holly, and I'm an alcoholic, and super, super happy to be here this morning. I set my alarm for 6:15. I'm like, oh my God, my dogs are like, what are you doing? One of them didn't even get up. She's still in bed. The other one came in to, listen. So my sobriety date, September 28, 1996. My home group is the West Connect group in Jacksonville, Florida. We meet Monday evenings at 7 p.m. Eastern time. We are hybrid. So if you'd ever like to attend my home group from your living room, please feel free to hit me up. Be happy to give you those codes. Carolina probably has those codes as well. And I do have a sponsor. My sponsor is the amazing Miss Polly P. And of course, she has a sponsor, and she has a sponsor, and I sponsor women, and they sponsor women. So I am smack dab in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous, where I definitely need to be. And so I was praying this morning and asking God to move me aside, which is what I always pray whenever I'm going to speak, because I don't want me to show up. And I thought it won't be hard for God to move me aside this morning because I'm not awake yet. So if anybody, nobody on here is anybody that really knows me well, but I am definitely not a morning person. So it's always fun when I get up and join people early in the morning and speak, because I'm just as excited to hear what's going to come out of my mouth as anybody else. No telling. I was also filled with gratitude this morning when I woke up. I thought about it's Sunday today. I have a new sponsee, so she's coming over this afternoon at 2:30. We're going to go through her very first assignment, and by the time she leaves today, we will have completed step 1. So I'm super, super excited about that. And I'm also doing the steps at a halfway house, and I'm going to be doing steps 8 and 9 tonight. So I have a very, very recovery filled day today. So when I wake up in the morning and my whole day looks like recovery, it's like, wow. And I had dinner with my sponsor last night, went and picked her up, and we went out to dinner. So it's just been a very, very full recovery weekend. And I don't know why it is that when I have a lot of recovery involvement, when my feet are moving in a lot of little recovery directions, it just seems to fill me with joy. It's just the strangest thing how that works. I'm sorry, my screen is just filling up with all this stuff, so I gotta try to kinda move it out of the way. Oh, and I also wanna say thank you to the people that have their cameras on this morning, and I know a lot of you, it's early in the morning, I do not blame you if you don't have your camera on, but for the people that do, thank you very much, because it gives me some faces to look at when I'm talking. Yes, thank you, Kelly, Carolina, and your beautiful headband. Absolutely gorgeous this morning. And Charlene, I saw last night. It's funny that you're on here this morning, because I saw you last night and I almost commented, you looked so elegant. You were sitting, you had your headphones. I know, I know. I was like, look at her. When Carla was speaking, oh, Carla's my sober sister, and she's amazing. But yeah, I almost made a comment and I thought, don't interrupt Carla. Don't interrupt Carla. So I didn't. Hmm. There's a line in the big book on page 133, and it says something like this. This is Holly's interpretation. Please don't look it up. It doesn't actually say this literally. But on 133, it says something like this: God wants Holly to be happy, joyous, and free. And I am here to tell you that that's exactly what I am. I am happy, joyous, and free. And I don't know if it well, probably does have a lot to do with the fact that I keep my feet very, very much in recovery all the time. But I learned the hard way that it's important to do that. But the benefits of recovery are not just not drinking. And if there's anything that I could say, I was talking to this new girl that I'm sponsoring, which is so, so exciting when I have a new girl, um, about the fact that we don't want to live our lives not drinking. And I can remember so many weekends in early recovery where people would say, "What are you doing this weekend?" And my answer was, "I'm not drinking. I'm not drinking this weekend," like it was an activity, like not drinking. And I'm here to say that I haven't not spent a weekend not drinking in a very, very, very long time. The promises of step 10, which I find to be probably the most important promises to me when I first came here, is the problem has been removed. I've been placed in a position of neutrality that is no longer an issue in my life as long as my feet remain in recovery, as long as I maintain a spiritual condition, which just means keep your feet in recovery. So, so the drinking problem's been removed. So why do I still come and why do I still show up and why do I set my alarm for 6:15 in the morning to be here? And the reason is that happy, joyous, and free thing. The benefits that I get here are far exceed just not drinking. I'm gonna tell you that I'm happy most of the time. I tend to be a bit of an optimist anyway, so I kinda look out of my blinds and I see the world as beautiful. That's a gift that this program gave me. I also start my day and end my day in step 11 as directed in the big book. So, I end my day looking at it, reviewing it, and seeing, where I might have ventured off, where did I forget to invite God in. I start my morning I look at my day, I look at plans for the day, and then I invite God in. My plans are subject to change at any moment. And I think because I do that, for the most part, things kind of go my way because I tend to try not to have a way. And I don't know if that makes any sense, but the more I have a way, the less happy I am. The more I don't have a way, happier I am. So I tend to be pretty happy most of the time. Joy was eluded me for a long time. I wondered about that. For a long time, I thought Bill was being redundant, saying happy, joyous, and free. And I realized that Bill is never redundant, having being much more familiar with his writing. I know he chooses his words very, very carefully. So what is this whole joyous thing? And I want to tell you the secret of Alcoholics Anonymous that I have discovered. And that is this. When I love you, I get filled with joy. And for the longest time, I thought that I needed to be loved to feel joy. I thought that was my problem, that nobody loved me enough, that that I was useless, that I was, not lovable. And I thought that if I became lovable and then people loved me, then I would be okay. And what I have discovered is just the opposite. What I have discovered that is in the loving of others that I get filled with joy. And it took me a long time to discover that. And here I am in Alcoholics Anonymous, which is love kindergarten, quite frankly. I mean, we come in here and I walk into an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting and it's common peril, immediately common peril. What? And I listen to people share and I'm like, me too, me too. OMG. And I'm so excited to be here and to be a part of this and and everybody says, "I love you," all the time. "Ah, we love you. We love you. You're so important. We love you." And it's easy to fall in love with each other in Alcoholics Anonymous, and nobody cares, like, who you sleep with. Well, unless you're sleeping with, like my husband, not that I have one, but just saying, nobody cares who you sleep with. Nobody cares if you're an animal lover or not. Nobody cares if you work or not, or if you do what you do. Nobody cares what voter registration card you have in your wallet when you walk into Alcoholics Anonymous. And I learned to fall in love here. And then through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and specifically the first 9 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, I learned kicking and screaming to take that love outside, to take it to mama, to take it to daddy number 1 and daddy number 2 and daddy number 3 and daddy number 4, to take it to my ex-husband, to take it to the internet provider, to take it to the government agencies, to take it to the line in the grocery store. And in learning to do that and learning to go out into the world and love others, I get filled with joy. I get a return. I get a huge return. The interest on my loving is phenomenal. But what about free? What are they talking about happy, joyous, and free? And I thought for a long time they were talking about freedom from the bondage of alcohol, but no, no, no. That's covered in the step 10 promises far earlier in the big book, page 85, 86. So what are they talking about here? Free. And I discovered this. I discovered that There is nothing you can do to stop me from loving you. Absolutely nothing. Carolina, nothing you can do to stop me from loving you. Do you know there's nothing my mama can do or daddy number one, daddy number two, daddy number three, daddy number four? Nothing my ex husband can do to stop me from loving him. What? It's just this right here. That's the only thing that can stop me from loving others. But God, in His infinite wisdom, gave Bill Wilson steps 10 and 11 to give to Holly. And as long as I am willing to be rigorously self honest, those two steps move me out of the way. And as long as I am moved out of the way, I am free to love always, which means I am free to have as much joy as I can stand. Isn't that the most exciting news you've ever had? Anybody can be filled with joy. And I am not subject to the whims of humanity. 8 billion human beings out there. What? That's a lot of bank accounts. That's a lot of opportunity for joy. And I can have as much as I want, which makes me free. Absolutely, positively, completely free. And that's amazing. Absolutely amazing. It's a miracle because I came into this program completely in bondage, and had no idea that it was me that did it, had no idea that it was me that wrapped myself up in rope, bound myself to myself, and then peered out at the world and hated it for the bindings that were wrapped around me and held in my own two hands. I had no idea. I'm a Chuck C fan, gotta say that, right? I'm gonna say right up front, but I've been talking for a little while. And if you don't know who Chuck C was, it's okay. We don't have any hierarchy in Alcoholics Anonymous. He wasn't like the president or anything. He was just some drunk guy from California. He died in 1984, so he's been gone a long time. But he used to give a lot of talks like people do, and they recorded those talks like people do. And, he gave a talk at a men's retreat in 1975. And later that weekend's talk was transcribed on paper, word for word. Call that a book. And it's called A New Pair of Glasses, and that book sits on my nightstand with a highlighter. Now, you don't have to run out and get it. It's not a text to be studied like our big book or our 12 and 12. The reason that it sits on my nightstand is because of identification. Because what Chuck gave me was a language for what was wrong with me. Because I had no idea until I heard him and then later read that talk. And what he said is this. He said he had one problem. One. What? I thought I had so many problems. One, conscious separation from God and mankind. And then he said there is one solution and it fixes every problem you could possibly have. One solution. And that is a conscious connection to God and mankind. And I think it's really important that we don't forget the and mankind. Now, there's a lot of emphasis in Alcoholics Anonymous on may you find him now, on the spiritual aspect of the program, which the whole thing is spiritual. There's really not a part, it's spiritual. And it is true that I have to have God, I have to be God centered. I have to come out from there. But I think that for a long time I got lost in the search for God, the search for spiritual nirvana, for no better terminology. I wanted to sit in my living room cross-legged, burned incense and listen to music and get a spiritual high from that, a well-being that I could then carry out into the world. And then as the world tore bits and pieces off of me, I could retreat back to my home and find God again and fill back up. And what I've learned is that's not the case at all. As a matter of fact, I get filled up quite a bit out in the world, loving others. What? The and mankind is probably the most important part because it's in the and mankind that I stay connected to God. I looked all over for God. I looked everywhere for God. I was on a third step sojourn. I went to every church imaginable. I studied every religion. I took religion courses at university with a renowned professor so I could study the 5 major religions of the world and find God. Like, where's God? But God was sitting here all along with 8 billion people all around me. And it is in the task of moving myself out of the way and going out into the world and loving that I touched God. I know this afternoon when Mary comes over to my house at 2:30 with her little big book and her 12 at 12 in her hand, and she'll be all nervous because 'cause it'll only be the second time she's ever been to my house, and she's 100 days sober and fired up and terrified. And when she comes over and she sits in my house and I make her a latte or whatever she can handle, and we sit down and we open the book, and she starts to share about the doctor's opinion and how it she relates to it and how torn up her life has been and how she's scared and all the things that she's going to share this afternoon, and I'm going to absolutely fall in love with her. I know this afternoon I'm going to touch God. I know this afternoon when I start to fall in love with this girl that will someday be one of my closest friends, because that's how sponsorship works, at least in my world, shoulder to shoulder friendship, that I know that I will have a moment to touch God. And that's what Chuck talked about, conscious connection to God and mankind. And I believe that that conscious separation, that knowledge of my separation is the line in the sand where I become an alcoholic. I think until I become aware of my separation, I just kind of do along. I kind of maybe want a drink, but I don't need one. But when I become aware of my separation, it is in that moment that I need a drink. And for me, that happened when I was 4 years old. I have a memory back to 6 months old. I used to think everybody did, but apparently not. Clear memory back to 6 months old. In the first 4 years of my life, I lived in Libertyville, Illinois. It's just a small town, North Chicago. My daddy was a prominent surgeon in the community, and my mother was a martini drinker. She drank a lot of martinis, cried, and slept. She was pretty much kind of a sideline in my life, kind of a shadow in the background. But my daddy was large and in charge, and as I said, very well respected in the community, prominent surgeon and mainline amphetamine user. And just in case you don't know what that means, he got the really good stuff that wakes you up. He shot himself up with it, and things were very exciting in my household. My daddy believed the G-men were out to get him, that he was under surveillance. So when I was 3, he taught me how to listen in the wall for bugs. He taught me how to sweep electronics for listening devices at 4. He taught me how to drive the car, sat me on his lap, floored it, let go of the wheel, said, "You're driving now. You need to learn to drive in case you need to get me away from the G-men." He screamed, I screamed, different reasons, but I did learn how to at least steer. My feet did not hit the pedal, but he was flooring it. And yes, I do still like fast cars. He also taught me at 4 how to shoot guns. He told me I needed to not only know how to shoot well, or to shoot, but to shoot well in case I ever needed to protect him from said G-men. So for the first 4 years of my life, I ran around with my dad. I drove a Corvette, I shot guns, and I had a blast. And then I went to kindergarten. I was 4 years old when they sent me to kindergarten, which is first year school if you're across the pond. And I walked into a kindergarten room that was filled with colorful, oh my God, it was magic. It was beautiful. It was fantastic. But there was a problem. And the problem was the room was filled with other little 4 and 5-year-olds. They were all running around laughing and having a good time and playing. And I stood in the doorway and I watched those children play, and I had absolutely no idea what to do. Played with children before, played with the neighborhood kids. I mean, I ran around. I knew how to do that. But when I walked into this environment where they were all collected in one place and they all seemed to fit in, it was in that moment that I realized I didn't, that they somehow got a memo I didn't get. And it was in that moment I knew there was something really wrong with Holly. It was the day that I became consciously aware of my separation. You know, the term tortured by loneliness that's found in the 12 and 12 in step 5. I know what that means, tortured by loneliness, because that was the first day that I was tortured by loneliness. I needed a drink. But I had to wait a few months when I was 5. My parents entertained all the time. They had a lot of cocktail parties. I hated it when they entertained because they always treated me differently when other adults were around. This particular party, I'm wearing my favorite dress. I know exactly what dress I had on. Nobody's talking to me. I'm feeling very put out. Kindergarten's extremely stressful. And my daddy says, "You're 5 now. You can serve drinks to the guests." So I said, "Okay." So I walked over to the bar, grabbed a highball glass. I filled it with vodka, a little lemon, called it a martini. And I walked across the room with that highball glass full of vodka and I drank it. I just drank the whole glass. And by the time I got across the room, I finished that glass of vodka. I set the glass down. I remember it like it was 5 minutes ago. I set that glass down and I turned around and I looked at the room, and the magic happened for me immediately. And I want to tell you, I didn't get taller and I didn't get smarter and I didn't get beautiful. I didn't care about any of those things. I was 5. It was much more primal. I turned around and I looked at that room and I fell in love with everybody there, and they all fell in love with me. And I was articulate and I had fabulous conversations and I was the life of the party. You know what happened to me that night? It connected. I had a conscious connection. That's what a glass of vodka did for me. At the end of the night, I said, whatever that stuff is, I'm going to drink it as often and as much as I can. And I did. I was an adult in that household. I could pour a glass of vodka anytime I wanted to. So I became a weekend drinker at the age of 5. By 11 or 12, I was pretty much a daily drinker. At 13, I started hitchhiking around the United States. My mom divorced that daddy, remarried a naval officer that liked to beat me up if I didn't answer the ridiculous questions he asked me, like, where are you going? Which I thought was none of his business. So he'd ask and I wouldn't answer and he'd punch me in the face and, he'd beat me up and I'd grab a bottle and hit the road. An adventure. See, I don't drink and cry and fall asleep. I'm a little more high energy than that. When I drink, I travel. And back in the late 60s and early 70s, there was a method of transportation that was very accessible and quite cheap. It was called a thumb. Yes, Andrew, a thumb. And off I went. At 14, my mom and stepdad moved us from Libertyville, Illinois to New Orleans, Louisiana. I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. There was alcohol everywhere and Interstate 10, which goes from Los Angeles, California to, yes, Jacksonville, Florida. And I now had the world was my oyster. Is that a saying? Anyway, see, it's too early in the morning. Sayings may come out weird. So we moved to Jacksonville and I start hitchhiking and I'm traveling further. I mean, Jacksonville to New Orleans. I was also introduced to condiments when I arrived in New Orleans. I'm a real alcoholic. I obsess over alcohol until it is in my possession. I get a bottle of JD in my purse and the sense of ease and comfort comes at once. But as soon as I put that alcohol into my body, the phenomenon of craving is immediate. And all I know from the first drink forward is more. And more has no definition. I am absolutely a real alcoholic. But in the 70s, they had a lot of condiments to go along with your alcohol, which was fine. I could take them or leave them. But what the condiments did was allow me to drink more, travel further. So now I'm in New Orleans and I'm hitchhiking and I'm coming to in places like which is not a destination, just saying, or LA or Florida. I came to in Florida quite often, which is great when you're living outdoors. Florida is a good state to be. My parents decide there might be something wrong with a 14-year-old hitchhiking around the United States, so they drop me off at Paul's Mental Institution, where the psychiatrist has decided I need a 3-day evaluation. And they drop me off for that 3-day evaluation, and they pick me up a year and a day later. And the only reason they picked me up from that mental institution is because the insurance ran out. Now, this was not rehab. This was a mental institution. We don't have those anymore. There's a reason for that. They shackled your arms together and your legs, and you shuffled up and down the halls. And most people were on really good drugs. They gave me nothing. They strap you down to cots in the hallways at night. It was not a fun place. So I'm 15 years old on the day they let me out. I'm sitting in my psychiatrist's office with my parents, and he's talking to them in front of me. And he tells my parents that it's unfortunate that he has to let me go, but the insurance, blah, blah, blah. And then he says, in preparation for my homecoming, they need to make funeral arrangements because I'm not going to survive. I'm terminally insane. I'm either going to self implode with my lifestyle or I'm going to place myself in a position where I'm killed. And my mom's hoo 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 crying, and my stepdad's, I told you, girl. And I'm on the couch, and this guy has degrees all over the wall. And so I know he's an authority on mental health. And I know there's been something wrong with me since I was 4 years old. And now I know what it is. I'm terminally insane and I'm going to die. And then they let me out. Well, like I said, I'm a little bit of an optimist. So I made Steppenwolf's Born to Be Wild my theme song, and off I went. In the next 8 years, I hitchhiked around the United States. I ran with very dangerous people doing very dangerous things, and it was incomprehensible demoralization. It was not glamorous. It was not fun. I ran for my life a lot. I was a little girl. I was a teenager. It was terrifying. I managed to get married in 1978 or 76. God bless, 1970s, 50 years ago? Whoa, got married 50 years ago. I'm not that old, I promise. Anyway, I was blowing through New Orleans one time, and I was looking for a guy I'd been dating, and we'll use that term loosely, and he wasn't around, but his best friend saw me walking down the sidewalk, and he pulled over and he said, "Oh my God, you're in town. You want to go party?" And I said, "Sure." And I jumped in the car with Tim, and we bought a bunch of tequila and woke up married. Whoops. But he came from kind of a prominent family, and his dad said, "If you're married, son, I'll get you a great job down at the shipyard." His dad was a very high up person at a big shipyard in New Orleans. So he got him a white collar, really, really nice job. So we stayed married for the money. 1978, I had my first child. The important thing that happened during that is that I was in college. I decided why not? I'd gotten a GED and a foster home I got put in one time. So I may as well go to college. So I was taking a course and a professor assigned a paper for me. And the paper that he assigned was the effects of alcohol and drugs on pregnancy and breastfeeding. Now, this is 1978. That was not a thing in 1978. Trust me. They told you to drink wine to keep the swelling down in your legs, and beer was great for breast milk. So, but I'm studying and researching for this paper, and it's when I found out I was pregnant for my daughter. Timing was impeccable. So I didn't touch anything through that pregnancy. But as soon as I weaned that girl from breastfeeding, I was off to the races, and when she was a little over 9 months old, I went out for a mixer one night, and I disappeared for 9 months. I think I mentioned I used to have very, very long blackouts. I had the kind of blackouts where you wake up in another state living with somebody you don't remember meeting. Long blackouts. I could black out for a month, 2 months, and then just beam back in. No, I didn't often just wake up and come out of a blackout. I would be in motion, and then suddenly I'm back. It was very weird and very frightening. So I had Casey in 1978. I disappear for 9 months. I come back. My mother actually finds me in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She's on husband number 4 now, living in Houston, Texas. She finds me in Pittsburgh, brings me back to New Orleans. My husband has divorced me and has custody of my daughter while I was gone, as he should. And she pays for an apartment in New Orleans and says, "Please stay put. Your husband and your daughter need you." Well, the husband clearly didn't need me, but my daughter did. And I wanted to be a good mom more than anything in the world. I love that baby girl more than anything in the world. The problem with that is that I kept waking up in other states, and it makes parenting very difficult. So there I am in New Orleans on February 2nd, 1981. I'm drinking in a bar. Hello, it's New Orleans. And a guy asked me if I want to leave the bar and go get a condiment of some sort. And I said, sure. And I left the bar with him and ended up on what I used to call a bad date. This particular date, a little more brutal than most. I ended up out on a dock, and the guy was beating me and various other things. And at one point, I made eye contact with him, and I just said, "Please kill me, because I'm done. I just don't want to do this anymore." And it freaks him out. He runs off and he leaves me, which is good, quite frankly. And I passed out for a couple of hours, came to, found my clothes, put myself together, hitchhiked home, God knows. Walked into my little apartment at 5 a.m. and called my mom. Called mom and told her I'd been mugged because, what are you going to say? And then I said, "I'd really like to spend some quality time with you," because she's married to an architect. They have a really nice house with a pool, and I have seen myself in the mirror, and I am messed. And she says, "Get to the airport. There'll be a ticket." A couple hours later, I get to the airport, and on February 3rd, 1981, I fly to Houston, Texas. I get off the plane. I get in the car with Mama, and she announces that she is 3 days sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. What? And then she says the words that saved my life. She said, "It would mean so much to me if you would come to a meeting with me tonight to support me." She meant it. It was all about her. Thank God. Thank God. So on February 3rd, 1981, I walked into my first Alcoholics Anonymous meeting in a little smoke-filled trailer that sat in the parking lot of an Episcopal church in Kingwood, Texas. And I walked into that meeting listening. Because it wasn't my gig, it was Mom's gig. I wanted to see what it is she's gotten herself into. And about halfway through that meeting, God talked to me, he did. Now, he looked like a little blonde Texas woman. But what she said was this. She said she put alcohol in her body and a crazy woman took over. Took her places she didn't want to go, doing things she didn't want to do with people she didn't want to do it with. And that she was told she was terminally insane, but that she found she was not. That what she had, in fact, was a disease, and that disease is called alcoholism. And she said, if you are lucky enough to have that disease, there's a reprieve. She pointed to the 12 steps on the wall, and she said, all you got to do is these 12 steps, and you never got to feel like that again. Oh my God, I sat in the balance of that meeting thinking to myself, please let me be an alcoholic. Please, I want to be one so bad. Because if I'm an alcoholic, there's hope. Hope for the first time in my life. I haven't had hope since I was 4 years old, standing in the door of a kindergarten room. And at the end of the meeting, you saved my life. You did. You held up a little silver doubloon and you said, this is a desire chip. Does anybody have a desire to give up their way of life and try ours? Come and get one. And I ran to the front of the room and I got that desire chip and they said, welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. On February 3rd, 1981, I walked into a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, terminally insane. And I walked out, an alcoholic. Yes. I was fired up. I was so excited. I dove into Alcoholics Anonymous. Yes. I went to meetings, fellowship, fellowship, fellowship. Clubhouses were open 24 hours a day back then. You could play poker all night, smoke cigarettes, talk trash. It was awesome because I didn't know how to sleep at night and get up during the day. I know that seems silly, but I used to just go. You just kind of go until you don't go, and then you rest a little while, and then you just go again. So I didn't know how to do like all that proper sleeping stuff. I hung out at the AA clubs and did all of that. And at a year sober, I found myself in Hawaii and I wanted to kill myself. So if you're sitting in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, you got a little time under your belt and you're going to meetings and you're meeting your friends for coffee and you go home at night and you think, if this is all there is, shoot me now. That was me. Because, meetings, fellowship, fellowship, fellowship. They're fabulous tools in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. They are 1/3 of a triangle necessary for full recovery. They are the substitute for alcohol, but they are not the solution for alcoholism. So instead of killing myself, I went to one more meeting one more time and, oh, yeah, asked a woman to be my sponsor. What? Please don't wait a year to do that. It is Russian roulette. I asked a woman to be my sponsor. She said, I'll sponsor you, but you're going to work some steps. And my journey began. I started this meeting with my sobriety date of September 28, 1996. So I want to tell you what happened. I dove into the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and I thought there was an end game here because people at the podium would talk about it all the time. I got my husband back. I got a car, a driver's license, and insurance all at the same time. They would talk about I got a job or I got a better job or I got a promotion or I got a life back. They stood at the podium and that's what they told me. And what I heard is Alcoholics Anonymous' sole purpose is to get me a life. And so that's what I did. I listened, I suited up and I showed up. I did everything that you told me to do so that I could get a life. Because I thought that what was wrong with me is that I wasn't lovable and that if I get a life, you'll love me. It'll fill the hole inside and I will be fine. And I'm here to tell you that if you do what you're told and you suit up and show up, you get a life. And at 7 years sober, I moved to Jacksonville, Florida for a wedding. Mine. I married a button-up sweater fella I did. That's a cardigan if you're across the pond. Yeah, my parents, mom and daddy number 4 moved to Jacksonville and they introduced me to a coworker of my stepdad's, not an alcoholic. He's a real boy. He had a daughter. I had a daughter. By the way, just in case I forget, he's not dead. I talk about him in past tense all the time. We've been divorced 28 years. He lives down the street. But anyway, I marry Michael. He has a daughter. I have a daughter. We decide to have children together. We have 2 baby boys. Now I have 4. I'm managing a company because that's what my degree is in. I become Catholic because why not? He's Catholic. He's a Quebecien. He's from south of Montreal, St. Luc, very French Canadian. So, of course, he's Catholic. Anyway, I joined the PTA. I'm a member of society. I have arrived. I stand at the podium and I talk about the gifts this program has given me. I am so grateful. Those gifts keep me very busy. And you see, I'm filled up because you respect me and you love me and I'm doing a good job and I'm getting along with my mama and my sister and my kids and my husband. And it's a lot of work. And I'm busy, very busy taking care of the gifts this program gave me. And I'm so busy. We buy a new house and I'm at the old house cleaning and I've been working all day and I'm thirsty and I grab my thermos, it's empty and I think there'll be something in the fridge and I go to the fridge and sure enough, there's a 6-pack of liquid in there and I take the lid off my thermos and I grab one of those liquids and I pop the top and I pour it. The little cups don't hold much. I pour it in, throw the rest away, drink it, walk out of the door, give it no thought at all. None. 6 months later, I'm at a restaurant with my husband and I realized that day I drank beer. Now, what I want you to know is on that day in that house, when I put my hand on that refrigerator, I had not been to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous in 2 years. And I didn't quit AA. I love AA. I was going to go Saturday, and then something would come up, and I'll go Wednesday. Something will come up. I'll go Friday. Something will come up. I don't know how 2 years slipped by. I loved Alcoholics Anonymous. I sat in that restaurant and I looked at Michael and I went, oh my God, when we were moving, I drank beer. And I hadn't had another drink 6 months. I said, I guess I blew the whole chip thing. And then my alcoholic deductive reasoning kicked in and I said, but obviously it's no longer a problem. Would you mind if I order a glass of wine? Poor button up sweater. Bless his little heart. You know, I was taught in early sobriety that you don't have to do your fist up with the menu date. So I didn't. So he had no idea. No idea. He just thought it was so commendable that I stopped drinking so young. So I ordered a glass of wine that night in that restaurant. And I want to tell you, the only reason I am sitting here right now is that night in that restaurant when I ordered that glass of wine. At home were my 2 baby boys with a babysitter. Now, our 2 girls were already grown and out of the house. And my youngest son was an infant, and I was breastfeeding. You remember that paper that I did in 1978 on the effects of alcohol and drugs on pregnancy and breastfeeding? Well, I remembered it. Did a lot of research for that paper, and I knew the effects. Now, I think the rules today are don't drink if you're breastfeeding. But in 1978, the rules were you could have 2 servings of alcohol, not 2 drinks, not 2 Long Island iced teas, 2 servings of alcohol if you were breastfeeding, and then you had to wait 4 hours. So that's what I did, and it was hell. I want to tell you that I have no desire to be a normal drinker. Being a normal drinker is horrible. It's awful. I would wait every day until my husband came home. He would walk in the door, and I would have 2 shots of scotch usually because I don't waste my servings on anything else. So I'd have 2 shots of scotch, and then I would cook dinner, bathe the kids, watch TV with my husband, and it's time for bed. I want you to know I obsessed all day about when he would walk in the door. If he was late, he'd sleep on the couch. I was furious. I would have those 2 shots, and immediately the phenomenon of craving would kick in. But I knew I couldn't have any more because of that baby, and so I would press my fingernails into the palms of my hand till they bled. I had marks on my hands for a very long time. It took them a long time to go away because I wanted more. I wanted more. I wanted more so bad. I would put my car keys under my husband's pillow at night before we went to bed because I was afraid there was going to be a night that I would get up and I would drink and I would load those kids in the car and I would disappear. But it didn't happen. And I did that for several months, breastfeeding. And on the day I weaned my son, I had a spiritual experience. This was the day we're not going to breastfeed anymore. My husband walks in the door. I get ready to have my 2 shots, and I realize I have no reason to stop that night. And it could have gone either way. But what happened for me is a miracle. What happened for me is I was filled with a terror like nothing I have ever experienced before. It was like I came out of a blackout. It's like I woke up. And I remember I looked at Michael and I just went, oh my God, what have I been doing? Oh my God, get all the alcohol out of the house. And he wasn't a drinker, so we didn't have much, but get all the alcohol out of the house, throw it away. Oh my God, I have to go to a meeting. And I ran out the front door, and there was a church a couple of miles from my house that they had a meeting in the evening. I ran to the church. I forgot the car. I was terrified. I got to the church. It's like 5:30. The meeting's at 8. I sat on the steps of that church and I cried my eyes out. And I did steps 1, 2, and 3 while I sat on the steps of the church, waiting for them to open the door and give me the chip I hold today, which was September 28, 1996. And on the steps of that church, I did step 1 like I'd never done before. I conceded to my innermost self that I'm an alcoholic. I have a disease that will outsmart me, outthink me, outmaneuver me, that can put alcohol into my body without my permission. When I knew it was serious, and it was far different than a simple admission that I did on February 3rd, 1981. When I dove into the program of Alcoholics Anonymous with a fever, I dove in trying to find out, how did I get this all wrong? How did I miss this? And my eyes were opened. I suddenly saw that loving others felt good, and I'd never noticed it before. I noticed in a meeting when a girl was sharing that I didn't know, that I didn't relate to, that I didn't have the same story. I noticed that I cared about her and her back was to me, and it felt like love. It felt like joy, and I realized what working with others was supposed to mean, and all this time I thought it was just work. Then I realized a man wrote the big book. If a woman had written the big book, yes, God through a woman, it would have said love others, love others, love others. But it said work with others, and I didn't want to work. I missed it for so long. And the joy that I have found in Alcoholics Anonymous has been amazing. It is why I keep going. It's why I keep coming. I am filled with gratitude, but I am filled with joy, and joy is awesome because you know what? Polly says life's in session, and life is in session, and I need joy. The big book says whenever you have a problem, work with others, it'll fix it. Let me explain now. Loving others fills me with joy, and when I'm filled with joy, I can walk through anything. I can walk through life. Things like that firstborn baby girl of mine that in November of 2016, out having a few drinks, decided to snort a little social heroin, didn't know that was a thing, killed her instantly. 2019, my middle grandson passed away from a quick onset of cancer 3 weeks after his 18th birthday. My only sibling, my baby sister, lost her battle with stage 4 breast cancer in December of 2020 and passed away. Life is in session. Things happen. There's going to be sadness. There's going to be grief. But if I am filled with joy, I can walk through it. I can walk through anything. When my daughter died, I had sponsee sisters, my sponsor, people all around me. And what I knew was that the arms of Alcoholics Anonymous were not going to carry me through the death of my baby girl. That the only thing that would carry me through the death of my baby girl is move my feet. Go love. Go take care of my mama. She just lost her granddaughter. She was 80 years old at the time. It's going to rip her apart. My sons, they just lost their sister. I need to get them involved. They need to be able to talk about it. They need to do whatever, keep it open. Keep it open. I need to call all my sponsees. I had 14 at the time. Call all my sponsees and say, do not let the death of my daughter stop you from calling me. I don't care if your shoelace breaks. You call me. I put love in action more than I'd ever done because I needed it. I needed the joy to carry me through. So thank you, Alcoholics Anonymous, for giving me a way through life that I don't have to white knuckle it. It's not a burden to be borne. It's a joyful experience regardless of the circumstances. Carolina, thank you so much for having me this morning. It's an honor and a privilege.
Just a quick reminder to subscribe, like, or follow if you like the show on any of your favorite listening platforms. If you like the speakers and other content on the podcast, please show us some love by leaving a review and consider making a PayPal contribution to help keep the show going at paypal.me/a shot glass of recovery. Every dollar makes a difference, and we thank you. Our speakers come from my AA home group, AA Solution Seekers. We meet every day at 7 a.m., so pop in sometime and say hello. Until next time, thanks for joining me on A Shot Glass of Recovery.
Everything you do, the answer lies inside you.